is Dr. Taylor from Taylor Made Integrative Therapy. Today we're going to be talking about the ankle joints. If you recall from our last video, bulletproofing your feet, the body is an alternating pattern of stable segments connected by mobile joints, and when that pattern is disrupted, dysfunction, compensation, and injury occur. So we talked about the stable foot on the last one. Okay, if the foot is not stable, the rest of our body isn't stable. It is the base that everything works off of. Now, according to our joint by joint rule, the next joint, the ankle joints, have to be mobile. All right. Now, good ankle range of motion is important for dynamic posture, for balance, joint alignment, and proper weight transfer. What that means is you can jump, you can run, you can land, you can change directions, you can swing things. So let's talk about some of the causes of stiff ankles. The leading cause of stiff ankles is probably previous injury, ankle sprains, fractures, things of that nature. Now, most people are told to, stay off it for a little while, put you in a boot or ice it, and just let it rest. The problem with that is now that ankle has become stiff, you've lost coordination, you've lost some strength in there, and more importantly, you've developed a new movement pattern where you don't have to use that ankle as much. Okay, so if you're squatting, you're probably shifting into the other leg, or when you land, you're letting that knee collapse in, and that'll either lead to injury in that ankle later, or probably have to chain, like maybe in the knee or the hip or the back. Some of the other causes are sedentary lifestyle. So if we're sitting at a desk all day, we barely do anything where we're squatting down or going up and down stairs or anything like that, those ankles are going to get stiff. If you don't use it, you lose it, and we don't want to lose it. So let's keep those things mobile. Let's keep them working. Other issues could be degenerative joint disease, like getting some bone spurs, some arthritis in there. Could be autoimmune issues. Improper footwear is probably a really, really big one. Wearing these big cushioned shoes for these runners keeps your feet in plantar flexion. You don't get to use that whole dorsiflexion range of motion. And then like heels and lifts for the women definitely restrict your ankle range of motion. And I would say the only other one is kind of sports. So there's certain sports like sprinters and runners, volleyball players, basketball players, where they are always on the balls of their feet. Their fast twitch muscle fibers in their calves are probably like 90%, and they're just not going to have that full dorsiflexion range of motion, especially going down in a squat. Okay, so let's talk about how to assess the range of motion of the ankle. For inversion, eversion, it's more of a qualitative thing. It's not necessarily quantitative. You want to sit here with your feet, your knees, and your hips all in alignment. And all I want you to do is try to invert, evert, invert, evert. Notice my knees aren't moving, okay? Most people will try to do this, and that's essentially a compensation. So try to do it without touching your knees and keeping your knees perfectly stable. If you can do that, you're in pretty good shape. If you can't do it, I want you to hold your knees and try to do it. Okay? If you still can't do it, this is probably more of a mobility issue, and we need to work on that. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. All right? Now, for dorsiflexion, that is the main one we want to talk about. When we have poor dorsiflexion, every time you go down a stair, you either have to turn your foot out or your knee collapses in. Every time you jump or land, everything's going to collapse in, because that's how we compensate through the foot. We lose stability in the foot, we lose stability in the knee when our ankles are stiff, okay? And when bad things happen, we're gonna get a lot of injuries if that happens. So we wanna have good ankle range of motion. That knee should be able to go past those toes. Every time we jump, land, run, change directions, things of that nature. So let's talk about how to assess that. My favorite way, and kind of the standard, because you can repeat it over and over and over again, is using a tape measure. Okay, you put your big toe at the 5-inch mark. Now this is my bad ankle. I have some pins and screws with some scar tissue in here. I'm going to line my big toe up right at that 5-inch mark. And if you remember from the first video, we're going to create our foot tripod. We want that stable foot. And everything's going to be in alignment. Foot, knee, hip. I'm going to drive my knee over my middle toe. And I'm about 1 finger away from the wall. And I'm making sure I keep my heel down. Okay, so the heel doesn't come up, the arch doesn't collapse down, and we just drive that knee right over. All right, you can see over here on my good ankle, right at 5 inches, everything's in alignment, creating the foot tripod, and go there pretty easy. So after you drive your knee over your toes, if you can't touch the wall, I want you to try to put fingers in between your knee and the wall and measure how many fingers it takes for you to fill that gap. All right, and then after you do every mobilization that we're about to show you, I want you to retest, okay? If you see it makes a huge improvement, I want you to keep doing that one. If it doesn't really make a lot of improvement, you can probably skip it, okay? Now just bear in mind, if you do something that made a huge difference, everything else is being a little minimal, but you can kind of tell what feels good, what doesn't, what's helping, what's not, okay? When you were doing your test, all right, try to bring that knee over the toes. What did you feel? Did you feel a big stretch in the back, or did it feel like a block or a pinch in the front? All right, that's important. If it was just a block or a pinch, that's a joint issue. The joint is not dorsiflexing. It's not anything to do with your muscles or soft tissue in the back. What you want to do is do some of these joint mobilization techniques first, okay? If you just felt a big stretch in the back, you can probably skip these and go right on into the soft tissue mobilizations. But for the joint mobilization, we talked about that talus needs to move posteriorly as the tibia rolls on top. All right, so what you're gonna do, you're gonna get your foot inside this jump stretch band. I'll put a link in the description for this. And you're gonna put your foot on top of some kind of step or some weights or something like that. Stack something up. You want that anchored really low, and so that it pulls back and down, okay? And then you see where the strap is. It's very low in my ankle joint. You don't want it up here in the tibia, because that's just going to pull the tibia back and let the talus go forward. So if you come here, you can actually almost push down. Notice how it's under my ankle bones. I'm going to push down, creating that foot tripod, nice stable foot. I'm going to drive my knee over the toes. Okay. So again, this is my bad ankle, and I did not feel the stretch in my calf, but I feel it right now. And again, make sure that the knee is going right over the middle toe. Lean in there, get the little body weight on there, get a good stretch. So hold for a couple seconds and then come back. This is a mobilization, it's not a stretch. So you want to do about 20 repetitions with this. All right, there are two other ways. If you don't have a band, you can't afford a band, or you can't find the right one, there are two ways you can do it without a band. And I thought these were ingenious when I first learned about them from the Titleist Performance Institute. But the first one, if you want to work on the talus, is you're going to put your heel right into that ankle joint. All right, you're going to push down. Now, as you push down, you're going to go up on your toes. You see how the talus is coming up? Well, that heel is going to mash it back down. Okay, so use a wall for support. I'm going to push down on that talus, and I'm going to rise up. It's not a big movement. You're just trying to mobilize that joint. Okay, and again, it's a mobilization, so you go up, hold for a second or two, and come back down. So from the side, watch how much, everyone always does this at first. They try to go like in a full calf raise. Don't do that, just, I'm pushing down, and I'm just lifting up. Okay, so most of my weight is actually on this leg here that's pushing down on the talus. All right, now there's one other one I like. I call it the plie. So, especially if you are one of these people where the feet are turned out like a duck, that is usually coming from the knee. You're externally rotating the tibia, and you'll know that's happening is if you try to rotate your foot in, it's going to feel real weird in your hip. It's because it's not coming from the hip, it's coming from the knee. Now, if you're able to, and you can keep your knee here and rotate your foot in, you'll notice as you do that, your arch will be really, really high and stiff. So that's what we're going to do here. So now you're going to step on the middle of your foot, right where that arch is. Okay, that's going to push your foot down as you plie. So look, I'm driving my knee out past my pinky toe. What I'm doing is a clamshell. I'm rotating my knee out as I step on this arch, and it's helping mobilize the ankle. Just keeping my foot there. Get some good ankle dorsiflexion. Okay, it's a great exercise. This one was phenomenal when I first learned it. This is my favorite thing to do. There are lots of other ways to mobilize using foam rollers, softballs, things of that nature, but I like to mobilize things in the position that I'm at. Okay, so if I'm trying to get dorsiflexion, I want to work on this while I'm in dorsiflexion. So this is it's called The Stick. It's a massage stick. You can get these on Amazon. I'll put a link on this too.
especially for people who can't get on their knees or foam roll is really sensitive. This is a great alternative. So we want to work on the tibialis anterior muscle. If there are trigger points in there, this muscle is not going to work well. So it goes right here and actually comes down and creates the arch in your foot. Really important muscle, so make sure this guy is alive and active. If you find any really tender spots, work on it for about 30 seconds or until the pain goes away. Okay. Now I want to work on the peroneal muscle. This comes down around here, goes around the outside, comes down, and actually attaches to your arch as well. Now this is the muscle that gets real stiff and weak after we sprain our ankles. So if you roll your ankle like that, this is the muscle that prevents you from doing that. And this guy can be real tender. I didn't get some nervy shooting pain coming down. But if you're having trouble with that inversion, eversion, this is definitely one of the areas you want to mobilize. Okay, and then you can come up to the back. So right now I'm going to try to get to the deep stuff. So I'm not going to put any stretch on my ankle. And for most of us, it's going to be the outside calf that gets real tight. So you can focus on that. And if you want, you can really, God, that looks amazing already right now. But you can work on it with the stretch and you really try to loosen things up here. So this is my tight, tender area. This is where all the swelling is in my foot. I don't really get anything up here. Okay, so we call that search and destroy. And now we want to do a calf stretch. So after we work on soft tissue, you want to not just stretch, but you want to kind of retrain the body how to use the muscles in that new range of motion. So what we can do is just go into a nice calf stretch. Again, keeping my tripod, keeping my foot nice and stable. Let's do it from the side. There should be a little drop, but not a total collapse of the arch. Okay, and on this calf stretch, we're going to hold for about 30 seconds. All right, and then you come back and do it about 2 times. All right, so we also want to strengthen those dorsiflexion muscles, mostly the tibialis anterior. What a lot of people do, they use their toe extensors too much. So if you remember from the first video, we want to create that foot tripod that all the toes and the feet are touching the ground. We want as much contact with the floor as possible. Pulling your toes up decreases that contact. The thing that dorsiflexes your ankle when your toes are down is your tibialis anterior. So you want to be pointing the toes down and dorsiflexing the ankle. I like to groove the squat pattern. So we can do something called triple flexion. Keeping my torso flat, I'm going to pull my foot up. I'm going to push down slightly into the ball. And I'm going to pull into flexion. Most people cannot squat without weight on their back. It's because they're using the weight to push them down into their squat position. These are the muscles you need to activate. You should pull yourself into the squat pattern. So you'll get ankle flexion, knee flexion, and hip flexion. And these are all the muscles you'll need to activate when you do it. All right? So about 20, 30 reps of those will help groove not only the squat pattern, but also ankle dorsiflexion strength. Okay, so in our first video on stabilizing the foot, we had some balance stuff just on the ground, okay? Now we're trying to mobilize the ankles, so we want to have a kind of an uneven surface. You can do that a couple ways. You can use a wobble board, a Bosu ball here, or like an RX pad. All right, but all you will do is get your foot right in the middle. Okay, stand up. This is designed to be hard. Get on that single foot. Okay, getting a lot of ankle activation, trying to stabilize. Try to hold for 30 seconds. Okay, you'll get a lot of motion, a lot of stability, okay? So a lot of times joints get stiff because we don't know how to control them in that range of motion. So this is great for helping to strengthen and also mobilize the joint. This is an RX pad. Not as difficult as a Bosu, but very similar. If you don't have any of these, what you can use is a pillow at home. Just stand on a pillow. All right? All right, just practice that. Okay, guys, last thing we want to do is take that new range of motion into some functional movement. And one of the best things you can do is a squat, okay? So if your ankles are still a little stiff, you're going to tend to fall backwards. So what you want to do is get some weight, you get a kettlebell, get a plate or something like that, hold it in front of you. That'll offset that falling back. And I want you to drop down into your squat. Okay, keep those heels down. If you got a plate there, you can actually push your knees out, drive them out. And right now I'm kind of shifting my weight. My right heel's coming up as my knee goes over those toes. Feel a nice little stretch, and then back up. Come down again, and back up. Remember, I'm creating my foot tripod. My knees are going outside the middle toe, getting a good stretch. All right, so again, that'll help strengthen up the foot as you load the foot. That'll increase range of motion in the ankle, and it's actually gonna help out your hips. So that'll probably be one we do in the next video when we talk about the hips.